Imagine this. You are halfway around the world and somebody asks you to provide proof of a vaccination, or maybe your passport goes missing, or some local official asks you for a document you didn't even know you needed. What are you going to do? Well, today I'm going to go through the ultimate checklist of documents every long-term traveler should carry with them, from passports to prescriptions to advanced healthcare directives. These are the documents you want to have access to and not find out the hard way that you need when your only copy is back at home, in a box, locked up in a storage facility that no one else has access to. Now, probably you're not going to need to carry your only original copy around on your person every single day of your travels, so stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to go through some options you're going to want to consider for how to safely and securely maintain your access to these key documents. Hi, I'm Rob, and this is 10 Degrees Warmer, and we help long-term travelers plan smarter, travel lighter, and go further. If that sounds like your vibe, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single tip. And don't forget to comment below if I miss a document that you like to travel with. This channel is all about sharing that collective wisdom. So I've broken this up into several categories, and we're going to start with travel and immigration documents. The first is pretty obvious. It is your passport. But beyond just having a passport, you're going to want to make sure you pay attention to the expiration date. There are many countries around the world that require at least 6 months remaining on the validity of your passport to even be allowed in the country. Beyond that, if you're planning on staying somewhere 90 days, they might require 6 months from the date you are planning to leave the country. So you're just going to want to double check you've got plenty of time left on your passport. You can renew passports from abroad. It's a little bit more tricky from doing it at home. So if you are planning your trip, make sure you've got plenty of time left on your passport so you don't have to deal with it abroad. The next thing you're going to want to be prepared for is applying for visas. As you travel around the world, there are many different kinds of visas you might be interested in, each of which may require specific documentation to support your application. So these might be work visas or student visas or digital nomad visas. Just be prepared. Whatever you are interested in, you have the documentation ready to go. Another little note I'm just going to throw in here is just be aware that some countries may give you some kind of departure card. So when you enter the country, they might give you a piece of paper that you have to provide when you leave the country for the immigration official to deal with. This is getting less common as more countries are moving to digital visas, but just be prepared. If they hand you a piece of paper, you don't want to lose that before you leave the country. Now, some long-term travelers are going to be interested in applying for residency or even citizenship in other countries around the world. If this is you, just make sure you are prepared for that and have the documents you need to fill out your applications. Another thing you're going to want to think about is being able to prove onward travel when you check in for your flight. Now, this is one of those things, a lot of long-term travelers talk about it, and many people have never been asked, so they think, well, it doesn't matter because no one's ever going to ask you. But if you travel long enough, eventually someone's going to ask you. Only one time have I ever been asked by an actual immigration agent. This was years ago in Indonesia, where they actually wanted me to prove that I had a flight out of Indonesia. Most of the time that I have been asked, which is definitely a minority of the flights that I take, but sometimes it is by the airline itself that asks when I'm checking in for the flight, show me that you have a flight booked out of the country, because that airline does not want to be held accountable. If they fly you into a country and then you are denied entry by immigration, that airline sometimes is on the hook for flying you back out, and they don't want that. So they're going to check. I have been asked multiple occasions. There was once we were in Hong Kong, we were flying into the Philippines. I did not have a flight booked out yet, and they refused me entry onto the flight. I had to sit there. Luckily, we were there very early, and I quickly booked a flight out, and they let us on. So just be prepared. You're probably not going to be asked, but if you are, what are you going to do? There are other solutions beyond just having a flight. That's a little beyond the scope of this video, but you can get refundable tickets, or there are other services where you can rent tickets. Just make sure you have a solution so that when you are asked, you know what you're going to do. Something I encourage all long-term travelers to carry is a little stack of extra passport photos. You're not going to need these all the time, but every once in a while you're going to apply for a visa and they're going to want a photo. We recently needed one when we went into Laos. Now, sometimes when you need these photos, they will offer to take them for you because they know not everybody travels with them, but they are frequently priced exorbitantly for them to take a quick picture of you. So if you've got a little stack, you can save yourself some money and some hassle. Another time we used this was when we were in Paris and we bought a train pass that required a photo on it. There were, places we could go and get pictures that were very expensive. We had our own pictures. We just put them on. It was very easy. We were glad we had them. You might want to do that too. Something that's not going to apply for everyone, but there may be situations where you want to carry old passports with you. Where this might come into play is sometimes some countries offer very long-term visas that get put into your passport, and then that passport expires and you get a new one, and now your visa is in the old passport. There are different ways, different countries might have different rules about if you need to transfer the visa into the new passport. Sometimes it might just be ineligible at that point. You're going to have to get a new visa, but sometimes if you carry your old passport with you that has that visa in it, they will accept it that way. You're just going to want to make sure, depending on which countries you are traveling to, if you have long-term visas, consider carrying that old passport with you. Now, all of these documents, if they apply to you, I would consider a must-have, something that you have to bring with you. There are a few things that are more recommended. Again, it's going to depend on you and your travel style and what you need, but here's a few more things you might want to consider. Something to consider is having access to your birth certificate. Probably most people are not going to need this on a regular basis, but if you sometime in the future think you might be applying for a residency visa or something like that, you might want to have a copy available. The next thing is your marriage license, which you may need for certain visa applications or just to prove a relationship. Another thing you might want to look at is getting a police check report that just shows your record is clean. We were asked for this when we were accepted for a long-term house sitting position once. You may also need it for some volunteer opportunities. Some visas or residency applications may require that you show proof of funds, so you may want to have documentation from different bank accounts to show your compliance. Another thing you might want to have is rental references or proof of a home address. Sometimes these are needed if you are looking at getting long-term leases as you live and travel abroad. So a little bonus tip, I wanted to quickly mention apostilles. Now, sometimes if you are making an application to another country, they might require not just your original document, but they want that documented, translated into their language so that they can read and understand it. There is an official process for how you can get your documents like birth certificates or marriage licenses translated into these apostille documents. If you think you might need one, this is something you're going to want to look into and be prepared for. So already I know this is a lot of information. So to make it easier, I have created a free checklist that you can use when you are assembling your own documentation. You can access this either as a Google Sheets document, or if you'd prefer, a PDF that you can print out and use to check off as you go along. I will put the links down in the description below the video. It is totally free to access these. If you would like to support our channel, you can always buy us a copy. We appreciate that a lot, but either way, it is a free download. Links down below. All right, so the next section is going to be health and medical documents. First off, you're going to want to have access to your vaccination records. Now, this is for two reasons. One, you just want to be able to keep on top of things. You want to be able to know, how long ago was it that I had my last tetanus shot? When am I going to be due to have typhoid next? The only way you're going to remember these is if you have your vaccination record in front of you and can double check. The second is yellow fever. There are some countries that are going to require proof that you have had yellow fever vaccination if you have previously been to a country where yellow fever is endemic. Now, here's something to consider though, is that immigration officials sometimes make mistakes. When we entered Egypt, we had not been previously to a country that had yellow fever, but when we got to the gate, that immigration official demanded that we show him our yellow fever vaccination papers. Now, I was very happy that I could just pull it out of my bag and say, here it is, rather than try and get into an argument about why he was wrong about us needing it. So if you've had the yellow fever vaccination, make sure you carry that with you. Alternatively, there are some people who are contraindicated for different reasons that they can't get the yellow fever vaccination. If this is you, you're going to get some kind of documentation that shows from your doctor why you can't have it. Carry that with you because that's going to serve the same purpose when you're trying to get into these countries. If you have health insurance or travel insurance policies, you may be given a card that you're going to want to carry with you. These cards often will have your account number on it or phone numbers of people you might need to reach out to if there's an emergency, and you're going to want to have those numbers easily available to you in that emergency. You're also going to want to carry your prescriptions. Now, if you are carrying prescription medication with you, then you're absolutely going to want to have copies of that prescriptions in case some immigration agent or customs agent asks you to identify the pills that you're carrying. This has never happened to me, but it certainly could happen. Carry those prescriptions with you. But another reason to carry them is that long-term travelers, sometimes we're able to fill those prescriptions as we travel around the world. If you go to a random pharmacy and start asking for medications, some things that aren't available over the counter in the US may be in other places. If you show them the prescription, it just makes it that much easier for them to get that taken care of. Another thing you might want to carry with you are medical records. Now, this is especially important if you have allergies to certain medications that you need to let, in an emergency, people would need to know about. If you have chronic conditions, if you've had past surgeries that might affect, how you would get treated in a foreign hospital, you might want to carry those documents with you so that you can provide them to the necessary medical personnel. A couple of other things that would be recommended if they apply to you. Something as a nurse that I encourage everyone to have and travel with is an advanced healthcare directive. This is a document that lets people know what kind of healthcare you want to get in the situation where you become incapacitated and can't make those decisions for yourself. Answering these questions can be uncomfortable, but it can also be very empowering for you to be able to make these decisions ahead of time in a clear mind and not be in the middle of an emergency and have your loved ones or friends and family trying to guess what it is that you want to have happen. Get one of these available and have copies with you so that if something happens, you are prepared. Another thing to consider is having some kind of medical translation card. So if you're going to be traveling around the world and going to lots of different countries, this might not be feasible to do with every country that you go to. But if you're going to be staying in certain countries that speak the same language, or you're going to be there for a long amount of time, you might want to have certain things translated into that language, such as your allergies or medical history or medical wishes, so that if an emergency does happen while you're there, you've got a translation that can be handed, to the healthcare provider so that they can understand what's going on. So these things kind of overlap a little bit. It's just going to depend on how you have things set up, but having that emergency medical contact information, so that's going to have like your blood type and your allergies, that might have your policy, health insurance policy and contact numbers. Just make sure all of that stuff you have with you and have available in an emergency. Next, we're going to move on to financial and insurance documents. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to consider, and a lot of people overlook this one, is having your credit card numbers and contact numbers. So you know how on the back of your credit card, there's a little number that says, if your card is lost or stolen, call us here to report it. But if you lose your credit card, how are you going to call that number? Now, sometimes you can, of course, look these up on the internet, but different credit card companies sometimes will have multiple products, and maybe it's not the same phone number for each different credit card. So just to make it easy for yourself, keep a list somewhere. Here are my credit cards. Here is that number so that if my card gets lost or stolen, I can call it in and report it missing. Another thing you're going to want to have is your travel insurance policy and medical coverage, really, of having that summary of benefits. You want to know what is covered by your policy. Now, hopefully when you purchase the policy, you're going to read the fine print so you know what is covered. But the longer you travel, you're not going to remember all those details. But you're going to want to have a copy of that so that if something happens, you can easily reference it and know what is covered. Now that company may have those things, listed on their website. I like having a hard copy from when I purchased the policy. So in case changes get made, I know what was covered when I purchased the product. In that same vein, some of your credit cards may offer certain travel benefits. Have that summary of benefits with you so that if the need comes up, you can look and see what is covered. Another thing to consider is having access to your banking information, account numbers, and specifically routing numbers. If someone, especially in an emergency, needs to send you money, you might need that routing number. Sometimes they are different for international transfers, so just be prepared and have those numbers available. The next category is legal and personal identification. Now, sometimes you're going to have to identify yourself in certain places. You're not always going to carry your passport, so you probably are going to want to bring your driver's license from your home country. Just a second form of identification in case your passport's not available. Now, if you are planning on driving internationally, you're probably going to want to get an international driving permit, and this you'll want to obviously carry with you. Another thing I always encourage people to consider is having a list of emergency phone contacts. Gone are the days where I have lots of phone numbers just memorized in my head. I don't know anybody's phone number anymore. It's just on my phone. But if you lose your phone or don't have access to your computer, how are you going to call people in an emergency? I encourage you to have a list of those emergency contacts somewhere so that if you have to borrow somebody else's phone, you can still call those numbers. Other documents you may need access to are your will, or maybe if you have a power of attorney for someone, make sure you have these important documents available to you if you need them. Finally, we're going to talk about some specialty documents. Not everybody is going to need all of these, but if they apply to you, you're going to want to make sure you have access. The first one I'd put on this list is PADI certification. So if you like to scuba dive and you get your PADI license, you're going to want to keep that with you so that if you decide to go scuba diving somewhere else, you can prove that you are certified. Another thing to consider, if you travel with pets, you may need documentation for those pets, including vaccination records, import or export permits. I am not an expert on this, but if you travel with pets, you're going to want to be an expert and make sure you travel with the appropriate documentation. Next up are school or education records. So this might be important if you are traveling with children. You may need to have those documents with you, or if you are going to apply to study abroad. There are certain countries where you can get student visas regardless of age. Thailand is one that pops to mind. If you need to have those documents, make sure you have them with you so that you can apply for whatever it is that you want. I've mentioned it before, but I'm going to throw it in here again because sometimes people don't anticipate needing these things until they do. But if you need any kind of work permit, or if you think someday you might apply for a digital nomad visa, make sure you have the appropriate documentation with you. Now this next one is going to be up to you of how you like to handle it, but sometimes you're going to need confirmations of different travel activities, whether you're taking tours, or maybe it's a hotel or Airbnb booking confirmation, or a confirmation for a flight or a train or bus tickets, those kinds of things. More and more people are moving to online where you can show that, confirmation on your phone, or show that ticket on your phone and they just scan your phone and it's fine. But sometimes they want paper, especially, if you're in Southeast Asia on little buses, sometimes they want a paper ticket. Sometimes, especially if you're traveling on budget airlines, they specifically require you to have a paper boarding pass. And if you don't print it out ahead of time, there's some fee that they charge you when you get to the airport for them to print your boarding pass for you. The last time I flew Ryanair, they told us we had to print it. When we got to the airport, like half the people just had it on their phones and the agents were accepting that. So, things are definitely changing and moving to more digital stuff, but depending on where you are, you may still need it in paper. Make sure you have access to the things you're going to need. If you are more of a long-term traveler and you are signing long-term leases, make sure you have copies of those leases or rental agreements so that if anything goes wrong, you can see exactly what the terms are. Another thing to consider, there are a couple of countries that require you to register a SIM card to be able to use it in the country. Vietnam is one that just did this when we were there. Now, these rules sometimes are very selectively enforced. I know a lot of people who don't do it the right way and are just fine. But if you do want to play by the rules and do things officially, you might want to have that documentation available that you did do things the right way. Okay, that was a ton of information. Now I'm going to go through some of the options that you have of how you're going to want to carry these documents with you. Now, some of them, like your passport, your driver's license, you're going to want to have that hard copy with you. Sometimes you will carry it with you on your person. Sometimes you will leave it back at your accommodation, in your luggage, in a safe, but you're going to have those hard copies with you. Some documents I encourage you to make a photocopy of. So your passport is one like this, where we always have copies, just color photocopies of our passport with us at all times. So if we're going to walk around for the day and we're just going birding, we might leave the passport at home, but we always have that copy with us just in case something happens and we need it. We always recommend have multiple copies. This is especially helpful if your passport gets lost or stolen. You still got a photocopy, you know what those numbers are. You may also want to keep digital copies on your device or on your phone. Sometimes this might mean you take a scan and you email it to yourself. Sometimes this might mean you just take a picture with your phone of your driver's license so that you've got a copy of it on your phone. Now, if you are going to do this, what you don't want to do is take a picture of your driver's license and then you start traveling and you take pictures of this city and that event and this tour, and suddenly that photo that you took is just lost somewhere. Make sure you put it in a specific folder so that if you ever need access to it, you know exactly where it is and how to get it. Now, many phones have the ability to password protect certain folders. If you've got these sensitive documents on your phone, you might want to do that just to keep it safe in case your phone does get lost or stolen. No one else can access those sensitive documents. Another option is to upload these documents to the cloud. Again, I would make sure that it is password protected, but whatever cloud service you use, Google Drive, pCloud, Dropbox, whatever, have a folder in there that is password protected where you have all of your documents so you can access them when you need them. Another option, if you like to be a little more hands-on, is people will travel with a little hard drive, a little thumb drive, and you can put all those documents on that thumb drive and you can password protect it. So again, those little things are easy to get lost or left behind. You want to make sure it's password protected so no one else can access it, but that might be a good way for you if that's the way you like to travel, to maintain those documents. Finally, you might want to consider sending copies of some of these documents to a trusted person back home, whether it's a family member or a close friend, someone that will have access to them, that in an emergency and all your stuff is lost, you can still get access to the things that you need in an emergency. Look, no one ever wants to deal with lost documents or medical emergencies or immigration surprises, but if you have access to all of these documents, you are going to be way ahead of the game. So tell me down in the comments, what documents do you never leave home without? I would be really curious to hear if there's anything that I missed. And if you enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you might also enjoy these two videos. Today.